Today on Hearts of Heroes. With lives on the line, an unlikely group of heroes answers the call to action.
I see this lady standing up in a pile of rubble. I scream to everybody else that we need help over here, that we found somebody.
But with so much devastation, everyone will have to pull together to rescue this community.
Coming right this way. Those people gotta get out of here.
Then, when a tornado hits Alabama, neighbors and first responders step up big time to save a young girl.
She was listless. She had no reflexes, no anything.
These heroes will stop at nothing to try and help save the day.
In May of 2017, a series of tornadoes ripped through and around the town of Canton, Texas. Winds approached 190 miles per hour in one of those tornadoes. Trees were plucked from the ground, homes destroyed, and people's lives turned upside down. Thankfully, there was a team of first responders, not to mention a few brave storm chasers, who would step in to rescue those in peril.
Located 60 miles from Dallas, the city of Canton, Texas, has a population of just over 3,500. The area offers wide-open landscapes and a simpler way of life.
Living in Canton is quiet, but that's why we moved here, for peace and quiet.
But during tornado season, the area also attracts people with an unusual pastime, storm chasers.
It's the beauty that draws me to the storms. It has nothing to do with an adrenaline rush or any of that cliche. They're so beautiful, it's just, I want to witness the beauty of Mother Nature.
Spring is climatological prime time for tornadoes, and in late April of 2017, storm chasers were getting ready to chase a setup that included Canton. From looking at the computer models, the storm chasers knew it would be an epic show of Mother Nature's force.
As the afternoon progressed, it started becoming more and more apparent that there was a potential for a tornado outbreak.
Vicki and Jim Ferguson could see that the sky was growing darker, but they were unaware that an EF4 tornado was heading their way. Tornadoes are rated on what's called the Enhanced Fujita, or EF scale, which combines estimated wind speed with related damage to determine severity. An EF4 is what's considered devastating, packing between 166 and 200 mile-per-hour winds. Cars can easily be thrown, and homes leveled.
It just kept getting darker and darker. It was actually mesmerizing. It was like this wall.
It's horizon to sky, and from left to right, there was no end to it.
As the tornado moved closer to Canton, Jim Ferguson realized that he'd better start keeping a closer eye on the storm.
Around, must have been 5:45, I had been watching the news, and they showed a tornado hitting the Dodge House, which is 9 miles south of us. And I thought, well, need to pay attention.
The storm destroyed the car dealership and kept growing.
Big J, coming right this way. Those people gotta get out of here.
At this moment, I'm documenting this monster, terrifying storm, and I'm trying to stay out of its way and save my own life. And the storm is barreling down right towards me down this paved road.
When the tornado was just about 300 yards from Jim and Vicki's property, they took cover in their mobile home.
The ground was vibrating. I could feel it. And I knew things are going to be bad.
And Jim was watching the news and came out to the trailer and said, "We need to take cover."
We ran into what was a makeshift bedroom because we didn't have a wall up at that time. But we decided to pull a mattress over. That was our only protection. We're holding it down each with one hand when the storm hit. The mattress probably lasted about 2, maybe 3 seconds. The wind hit it, and it was starting to pull away. It sucked all the piers, the beams, everything up into the air.
The best thing you can do when confronted with a monster like this tornado is get low and stay low. Storm shelters or basements, or even a bathtub can be your best bet at making it through.
The next thing I know, I woke up because I was knocked unconscious from the tornado. And I realized we didn't have a building. I sit up, and when I did, then blood came into my eye, and I looked at Jim laying on the ground, couldn't move.
Vicki had a severe cut across her forehead. while her husband Jim had a serious neck injury. Almost immediately, Hank Schima arrived.
I look way out in the field and there's a car. I'm pretty sure there's nobody in there. While I'm going out to check that car, I see this lady in a pile of rubble. I scream to everybody else that we need help over here, that we found somebody.
Call 911!
Hold on. I got my radio.
These storm chasers aren't trained first responders, but they knew they were the only ones on the scene who could help. Their actions possibly saved many lives that night.
But Hank was not the only storm chaser out there. Giovanni Moreno and his team had also pulled over to help.
First thing I saw was Vicky, and she's obviously injured, and I see Jim, he's just on the concrete, and he was disoriented and couldn't move.
He's got a neck injury.
Hey, we got a neck injury right here.
Jim and Vicky were facing life-threatening injuries, but there was something even more terrifying, literally on the horizon.
I look on radar and there's another tornado that's gonna train right over this scene that's happening right now.
Coming up, with another tornado heading their way, the rescuers have to make some life or death decisions.
Looking at the radar, and there's more weather coming through, and it's just as intense, and there's really nobody out there but us to help them.
Then, another story about a tornado, this one in rural Alabama.
I looked out the window. The cables were shaking. It's all blurry, but I think my stepfather said there's a tornado.
But first, something that can help you stay safe in the face of danger.
Severe weather warnings are set forth by the National Weather Service as early as possible to give you the best chance of preparing for the worst.
If you fear a tornado is about to hit and you can't get out of its path, remember this: go low and get low. Identify a safe place such as a basement or interior room on the lowest floor where you, your family, and your pets can gather, giving you shelter.
Tornadoes can be extremely violent and move through an area very quickly. So have a plan in place beforehand, because it pays to know how to give yourself and your family the safest chance to survive nature's worst.
Jim and Vicky Ferguson had narrowly escaped death when a tornado struck their home. They were both seriously injured and needed immediate medical attention. Two groups of storm chasers were right there to help.
When Hank found us, he immediately found me a chair. I guess he realized I was bleeding more than I realized I was bleeding. Then Giovanni and his team showed up. They kept telling Hank, "You got to take her to the doctor." But I wasn't going to leave until somebody was there to take care of Jim.
But there was no time to waste. Another tornado was heading their way.
Looking at the radar, and there's more weather coming through, and it's just as intense, and you know, there's really nobody out there but us to help them.
I was able to talk Vicky into leaving her husband. I assured her that an ambulance was on the way.
Let's walk her out this way and then walk her that way. I think that's the best thing here. Give me your hand. I'm taking her to the hospital.
All right, be careful. There's power lines down through here.
All right, thank you.
And as we're driving to the hospital, the wall of rain and hail is hitting us. I'm dodging the circulations on radar, and I'm trying to keep her calm. You know, and I'm freaking out inside myself.
How you doing back there?
I'm good.
She said she's good.
After dodging all the powerful storms, Hank got Vicky to the hospital.
I'm gonna walk in with you for a little
Okay,
bit.
but your name was?
Hank.
Hank, okay.
Yeah.
So, Father God, I just thank you for Hank. I ask you to protect him in his storm chasing, and that you bless him and his wife for everything he's done for us.
Amen.
I'm not a religious person, but the fact that somebody is thinking about me when she just lost just about everything she had, that just goes to show you about her character, of what kind of person she is.
Meanwhile, Giovanni Moreno and his team needed to get Jim to safety.
I walked out with a young man on each side of me in excruciating pain. He put me in the front seat. He said, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything to support your neck." I said, "Let's go."
They took Jim to the local high school where an emergency unit had been set up. But soon after, he was taken by ambulance to the hospital.
They did the CT and they said, "You've got a broken neck." It was almost 2 days later that I woke up in trauma center in ICU.
Jim and Vicky Ferguson had survived one of the most terrifying experiences, being inside an EF4 tornado. But since then, they've been rebuilding their home and their lives.
Some of the marks on the floor we left in just for history's sake. Something was flying around in the tornado. Whatever this was just over our head. We're lucky to be alive.
And Jim and Vicky won't ever forget how a group of young storm chasers helped them too.
It was miraculous that y'all even came down this road and saw us.
I was so happy to hear their voices because I couldn't move because I don't know what would have happened if y'all hadn't found us.
For Vicky and Jim, they did exactly as they should have. You know, they were watching the broadcast. They knew the tornado was coming, and unfortunately, there was nothing that they could do but take shelter, and they did.
We've come to love you guys. You know, y'all are family now.
We're friends. They're my adoptive parents now, and so this is a good turnout to a bad situation.
Coming up, small towns in Alabama brace for life-altering tornadoes.
We got the calls on the radio saying there was another tornado tracking the same path the first one came through.
Alabama is known for its scenic landscapes, but when that peaceful countryside gets ravaged by a tornado, everything changes. Nothing can stop those violent winds that uproot trees and lift houses from the ground during severe storms. But after the storm passes, the resilient healing power of community can take over and take over stronger than ever.
Located in eastern Alabama near the Georgia state line, Beauregard is a small, close community. People here enjoy a simpler way of life, where neighbors and friends look out for one another.
I've lived here my entire life, and anything you need, all you have to do is ask, and somebody's going to be there to take care of that need for you.
On Sunday, March 3rd, storms were moving in. However, the people of Beauregard still went about their daily business per usual.
Weather really wasn't bad, really didn't rain. So we actually just kind of sat in the house and were lazy and watched TV.
I think it was raining and there was some thunder, and I was scared. And I think my mom was making fun of me.
While the predicted storms didn't raise any major alarms, local firefighters were ready.
We had a couple firefighters staged at each station to be able to respond as soon as we needed to if something did happen, trees down, maybe some flooding.
One of those major storms went from rain and thunder to something much more powerful.
Then I heard it. I've never heard a tornado.
And now, this massive supercell had an EF4 tornado inside of it, heading right toward Beauregard.
I told my wife, cover up with whatever you can, because I knew what was coming.
The warnings were out, sirens were ringing, but high school student Angela Gomez had almost no time to prepare.
I looked out the window. The cables were shaking. It's all blurry, but I think my stepfather said there's a tornado. When he said that, I went into the hallway. I hugged my dog, and my mom was sitting beside me, and the house shook, and I don't remember anything else.
Angela's home took a direct hit from the tornado. It ripped apart, tearing it from its foundation. Angela and her family were inside. First responders immediately jumped into action.
We started receiving all the 911 calls for people trapped in houses, and we proceeded to make our response into the damage area. There were multiple houses there. There's nothing, just flat. They're gone completely. Couldn't recognize the area anymore.
Riley Belcher also answered the call to action. While he doesn't work as a first responder, he fortunately has past experience in that field.
You know, I have some skills that could be used, but I don't think that's what made me go. I think it's something inside of all of us, is that desire to help your neighbor.
That's our first responders, putting their lives on the line to help everyone they can.
After aiding numerous people, Riley and his son-in-law made it to what was once Angela's home.
You know, we went up to where all the debris was. There was a guy up there saying, hey, there's some more people up here.
Riley found Angela face down in the hole of an uprooted tree. She was unresponsive, and they were all afraid that she had not survived.
She was listless. She had no reflexes, no anything. And then I saw her take a breath. So cleaned her mouth, felt a pulse, and she had a wonderful pulse. One of the guys found a closet door, so we managed to get her on the closet door.
By this time, firefighters Craig Brannon and Samuel Hutchinson arrived.
She was in really bad shape. She initially got brought out as far as we could on a door That's about the time I could get a backboard into where they were. We got a backboard in and made the decision that she couldn't wait on an ambulance. She had to go now.
And then we put her on back of the fire truck and we took her to our triage station that was down at Station 3 at the time that we was using to get her to the ambulance.
But as they loaded Angela onto the truck, they received terrifying news.
We got the calls on the radio saying there was another tornado tracking the same path the first one came through.
Coming up, emotionally rebuilding after a disaster.
To say that we were blessed is an understatement.
But first, a safety tip.
Understanding and preparing for the potential threats of natural disasters is critical for your personal safety and the safety of others.
If you live with children or elderly adults, please make sure that they also understand the proper precautions and have a plan in case a natural disaster occurs.
So be a leader and make sure everyone in your household and community knows what to look for and also what to do if you're against nature's worst. The time to prepare is now.
In the spring of 2019, a major tornado ripped through the small town of Beauregard, Alabama. This EF4 storm cut a swath of destruction that leveled multiple homes and buildings. But as first responders mobilized to rescue their neighbors, another tornado was about to touch down.
We were actually in the process of helping a patient out at that time. Best thing we could do was just look at each other and pray and do what we had to do to make our safety out there.
Really wasn't anywhere to take cover, wasn't much left. We were kind of out there in the open.
In an emergency situation, first responders have to think on their feet and do whatever they can to make the rescue. Often, this puts their own lives at risk.
With no time to spare, everyone took cover wherever they could. Thankfully, the tornado narrowly missed them. But now they had to do what they could to save 17-year-old Angela Gomez, who was struggling to stay alive.
The guy there I knew, he checked her reflexes and she had none. So at that point, we really didn't know if she would make it or not. The ambulance showed up, they tended to her and took her to the hospital.
Angela was rushed to a trauma center in Birmingham. She had broken ribs, a punctured lung, and shattered vertebrae. She spent the first few days in the hospital unconscious. During those dark days, her teacher, Michelle, stayed right by her side.
When I get there, they hooked me up with the nurses and the doctors that were actually doing her surgery, and they would call in and check in and tell me how she was doing throughout the surgery.
She's my teacher. She's part of our family now. I woke up in the hospital. I remember seeing her, and maybe that was the first time I ate some food.
Riley also wanted to reach out to the young girl who, until that fateful day, he had never met.
So we reunited at the hospital. It was very, very good to see her, not in that shape, and that she was doing okay.
Angela was lucky to be alive. Still, she faced months of recovery, and while other kids were back at school and looking forward to the prom, it seemed that Angela was going to miss out on all of that. Until her teacher, Michelle, stepped in.
The teachers all rallied together and we pulled enough money to get the dress, to get her hair, her nails, makeup, everything so that she could have the night of her life.
It was very, very special. I loved seeing all my classmates and they were hugging me and asking how I was. Besides that fact, I kind of felt normal being with other high schoolers. It was a good night.
Angela lost so much in that devastating tornado, but despite it all, she remains positive, knowing that she also forged unbreakable bonds with those people who came to her rescue.
We talked a little bit or text back and forth about journaling. Really helped me with some things, and I like to write, so I bought you a journal.
I feel like thank you is not enough. I feel like it's just not enough, but those are the only words that kind of describe what I'm feeling. So I'm just grateful, and I just thank you for all you did. God sent you there. You were supposed to be there.
Coming to see you for the first time, that was very emotional. But there again, it was a blessing for me to see you, that you were okay. I think tragedy brings people together in kind of unique ways.
You're right. We are forever bonded.
And maybe that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing.
Maybe it's good for you and for me.
Thanks to the heroic actions of neighbors, complete strangers, and first responders, lives were saved, and faith was restored after disaster struck both these brave communities. I'm Ginger Zee. Thanks so much for watching.